you ever wondered what it truly means to have a strong mind? Not a mind armored by pride or sharpened by defiance, but one so calm, so rooted in understanding, that it quietly unsettles those who have not yet met their own depth. A strong mind is not loud. It does not fight to be right. It simply is. It radiates a peace that feels strange to those still chasing validation, and that perhaps is its quiet power. It reminds others of the silence they've forgotten how to hear. Alan Watts once said that the mind, when left untamed, becomes the greatest source of our suffering. We chase shadows, we cling to illusions, and we call it life. But the moment we learn to observe the mind instead of obeying it, something shifts. Imagine standing on the shore of a vast ocean. The waves crash and roar, yet you do not try to stop them. You simply watch. That is the strength of a liberated mind. It doesn't control the sea. It learns to float within it. The world teaches us to harden ourselves, to win arguments, to defend opinions, to appear certain. But a truly strong mind is not hard. It is fluid. Like water, it takes the shape of whatever it encounters, yet loses nothing of its essence. It can adapt without breaking, listen without absorbing, and love without clinging. Strength, then, is not in resistance, but in presence. The mind that frightens others is not the one that dominates, but the one that cannot be dominated. There is something almost unsettling about a person who no longer reacts to provocation, who listens to chaos and smiles gently, who does not measure their worth in comparison to others. It disrupts the rhythm of a world built on noise and competition. When someone remains centered amidst disorder, it exposes the fragility of the illusions that surround them. A calm mind reveals truth, like still water reveals the moon. And truth, for those who are not ready, can be terrifying. Watts often reminded us that trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. The strength of mind he spoke of does not come from self-definition, but from self-realization, from understanding that you are not the storm but the sky in which the storm appears. When you stop identifying with the endless chatter of thought, when you stop saying "this is me" to every passing emotion, you begin to notice something extraordinary. Peace was never missing. It was only covered. To build such a mind is to undo everything you were told about power. It's not about outsmarting others, but about outseeing them, not through judgment, but through clarity. You begin to perceive the mechanisms behind fear, behind ego, behind desire. And as you do, compassion naturally arises. Because when you see clearly, you realize everyone is trapped in the same maze of thought, doing the best they can to find their way out. Your strength then becomes gentle, your words slow, your presence steady. And perhaps this is why a truly strong mind frightens others, not because it threatens, but because it cannot be controlled. It doesn't bend to collective fear or the pressure of appearances. It listens, it feels, but it is not consumed. In a world that feeds on reaction, peace is rebellion. To be calm in the face of chaos is the greatest act of courage, and yet it is not a fight. It is a remembering. The remembering of who we are beneath the noise, beneath the masks, beneath the mind itself. The process of building a strong mind begins in the simplest yet hardest of places: awareness. Most people live as though their thoughts are facts, as if every narrative that appears in their head is a mirror of reality. But a strong mind sees thoughts for what they are, passing clouds in an ever-expansive sky. It learns to watch them drift, to feel their shape, but never to mistake them for the sky itself. Awareness is the first act of liberation. You begin to notice the machinery within you, the fears, the doubts, the desires, not as enemies, but as patterns. And in that noticing, something begins to loosen. Alan Watts used to say that the ego is nothing other than the focus of conscious attention. When we fixate too tightly on the I, on the idea of who we think we are, the mind becomes tense, rigid, fragile. But the moment we release that grip, when we stop trying to hold the self together, the mind expands beyond identity. It no longer needs to defend, to prove, to win. The mind that is aware of its own ego becomes like a dancer who realizes the music is inside her. She doesn't have to move against it, only with it. That is the secret of inner strength. Alignment, not opposition. And yet the world mistakes this stillness for weakness. We are conditioned to measure worth by control, control of outcomes, of people, of appearances. But the truly strong mind understands that control is an illusion. Life is movement, and movement cannot be possessed. When you try to grasp the water in your hands, it slips through your fingers. The only way to hold it is to cup your hands softly, to let it rest there without clinging. In the same way, a powerful mind does not hold on to moments or meanings, it flows with them. This kind of strength unsettles people because it cannot be manipulated. You cannot guilt a peaceful person, you cannot shame someone who knows themselves beyond image, and you cannot buy someone who has already found contentment within. To those still searching for validation, such serenity looks alien, even arrogant. But it is not arrogance, it is freedom. And freedom, to a mind still trapped in comparison, feels like defiance. That is why peace makes noise in a noisy world. It reminds us of what we have lost touch with. Watts once compared life to music, saying that its purpose is not to reach the end of the song, but to enjoy the dance of each note. A strong mind dances this way through experience. It doesn't rush to conclusions. It doesn't live in anticipation or regret. It understands that the present moment is not a bridge between past and future, but the only place where reality breathes. Each breath, each sensation, each thought is part of an infinite symphony, and strength lies in hearing it fully, without interference. But how do we cultivate this strength in a world that constantly demands reaction? It begins with silence, not the absence of sound, but the absence of resistance. Sit with your thoughts. Watch how they rise and fall like tides. Notice how emotions come like waves, strong, temporary, and beautiful in their own rhythm. When we stop fighting the movement of life, we begin to see its intelligence. Silence is not passive. It is the space where truth emerges. From silence, understanding blossoms naturally. Over time, awareness deepens into wisdom. You stop needing answers because you start seeing patterns. You no longer seek control because you find rhythm. You no longer fear uncertainty because you recognize it as life itself unfolding. A mind like this, steady, gentle, and unbothered, radiates quiet authority. It doesn't need to assert itself. Its presence speaks louder than words. And in that stillness, others begin to sense something, a calm that both attracts and unsettles. Because somewhere deep inside, they recognize it. They remember that they too are capable of such peace. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when strength is no longer about what the mind can endure, but about what it can release. We spend years collecting ideas, identities, memories, opinions, until the mind becomes crowded like an attic full of forgotten things. But the truly strong mind does not hoard. It simplifies. It lets go of what is no longer useful. It knows that clarity is not achieved by adding more, but by subtracting what no longer serves. In this way, inner strength becomes a quiet art of surrender, the gentle courage to say, "This thought does not belong to me anymore." Alan Watts often spoke of the futility of clinging to permanence. He said that the more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless. A strong mind understands this truth intimately. It does not cling to rigid beliefs or fixed identities. Instead, it moves like the wind, invisible yet undeniable. It can occupy any form and yet remain untouched. When the world expects resistance, it offers flow. When the world demands certainty, it offers curiosity. Its flexibility is its fortress, its openness its armor. But let us be honest, such strength is not easy to build. It requires facing what we spend our lives avoiding, our fears, insecurities, and contradictions. A strong mind is forged not in comfort, but in awareness of discomfort. It looks directly into the places that tremble within and says, "I see you." It does not escape its shadows. It integrates them. It does not deny pain. It listens to it. Through that listening, pain transforms into understanding and fear into gentleness. Paradoxically, it is the act of embracing vulnerability that gives the mind its unshakable foundation. And this is where people begin to misunderstand strength. The world associates power with invulnerability, yet the strongest minds are the most open ones. They are open to change, to emotion, to the unknown. They are not afraid to feel deeply, because they no longer mistake feeling for weakness. They know that emotion is simply the soul speaking in the language of experience. To repress it is to silence wisdom. So they let the river of emotion flow, not drowning in it, but allowing it to cleanse the silt from their awareness. A mind like this doesn't just withstand chaos, it transforms it. It sees through the illusion of separation that fuels fear. It knows that conflict in others is merely the echo of their own inner storms. Therefore, it responds not with judgment, but with compassion. It does not fight back, because it recognizes that there is no enemy, only another expression of the same consciousness still learning to see itself. And that realization is what truly unsettles the world, not defiance, but deep, unshakable empathy. In the teachings of Zen, there is a saying, "The obstacle is the path." The strong mind lives this truth daily. It no longer asks, "Why is this happening to me?" but rather, "What is this trying to teach me?" Each difficulty becomes a doorway to greater understanding. Each loss becomes an invitation to love without attachment. This way of seeing dissolves fear, because nothing is wasted and nothing is random. Life ceases to be an adversary and becomes a mirror. Every reflection, pleasant or painful, reveals something about who we are becoming. And when the mind reaches this level of stillness, something extraordinary occurs. The noise of the world no longer dictates your inner weather. You can walk through conflict and remain clear. You can stand amid uncertainty and feel whole. You begin to sense that everything, every joy, every sorrow, every silence, is part of the same sacred rhythm. Strength becomes no longer something you have, but something you are. The world may still spin in confusion, but within you there is only the quiet pulse of awareness, vast, steady, unafraid. And that is the kind of strength that changes not only you, but the atmosphere around you. When the mind finally becomes still, it begins to see the world not as a battlefield, but as a mirror of consciousness itself. Every encounter, every emotion, every challenge reflects an aspect of the self waiting to be recognized. The truly strong mind does not separate itself from life. It participates fully, yet remains unbound. It listens deeply, to people, to silence, to the subtle rhythm beneath all things. It no longer rushes to fix or to control. It understands that wisdom grows not from force but from presence. Like a tree that bends with the wind yet stands firm in its roots, the awakened mind knows that flexibility is not surrender, it is grace. Alan Watts taught that life is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be lived. The strong mind lives this truth naturally. It does not demand answers from existence. It allows the questions themselves to become sacred. It sees meaning not as something to be found out there, but as something created through awareness. And this awareness, once cultivated, becomes its own kind of quiet rebellion, a refusal to live unconsciously. For when you awaken, you can no longer play the old games of fear and competition. You begin to act, not react. You choose peace, not because it is easy, but because it is true. To build a mind that unsettles the world is to become a living paradox. You are soft yet unbreakable, humble yet powerful, silent yet deeply heard. You stop trying to convince anyone of anything because you realize truth is not taught, it is remembered. Your calmness begins to teach louder than your words ever could. Those around you will feel something they can't quite name, a sense of stillness that draws them inward. Some will find it comforting, others will find it frightening. But in both, transformation has begun. The strength that emerges from such awareness is not the strength to dominate, but the strength to understand. It is the kind of strength that forgives without forgetting, that loves without possession, that acts without attachment to outcome. You become, in essence, like water, patient, adaptable, unstoppable. You can carve mountains not by force, but by persistence. You no longer seek to impress the world because you have learned to express it. You have become one with the current that moves through all things. This is why the world often fears the calm. A mind at peace cannot be manipulated. It does not feed on validation. It does not need to belong. It cannot be bought or broken. In its presence, all illusions tremble, not because it attacks them, but because it no longer believes them. Its silence exposes noise, its stillness dissolves pretense. A strong mind unsettles not through confrontation, but through reflection. It holds a mirror to the world, and in that mirror people are forced to meet themselves. That is the quiet revolution of consciousness. And yet, this strength is not rare. It is within every human being. It is not something to be earned. It is something to be remembered. Beneath the noise of thoughts, beneath the layers of identity and fear, there is a vastness that has never been wounded, never been afraid, never been divided. The purpose of life is not to become that again, because you already are, but to remember it consciously. Meditation, silence, awareness. These are not escapes from the world, but doorways into it. Through them we stop being prisoners of the mind and become its master. So when you hear the words, build a mind so strong it unsettles the world, remember, it is not about power over others, but power over illusion. It is about remembering your own infinite nature in a world obsessed with limitation. To build such a mind is to walk through life as a living invitation to peace, to be the stillness that others didn't know they were searching for. And if your calmness unsettles them, let it. It means your presence is waking something ancient inside them, the same awareness that now lives quietly yet brilliantly within you.